This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And on the line with me is the an op-ed columnist for the Irish Times. IrishTimes.com is the website. Fintan O'Toole, talking to us from Ireland. And Fintan, am I saying your name right?
You are. It's very impressive, Tom. Thank you.
Oh, good. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I read your article and titled "What Connects Brexit, the DUP," which is this relatively obscure, at least to Americans, political party out of Northern Ireland that Theresa May, the Conservatives, are going to form an alliance with to govern the UK. So anyhow, back to the title of your article: "What Connects Brexit, the DUP, dark money, and a Saudi prince?" And this is a pretty shocking article. So first of all, tell our viewers, listeners, what is the DUP? I just did a little thumbnail sketch of it, but I'm sure you could do a much better job than me. And why would it be surprising that the DUP were suddenly to have a lot of money to engage in political activity?
So the DUP is the largest political party in Northern Ireland. Just to remind people, Ireland is divided. Most of the island is, from where I'm speaking to you today, is the Republic of Ireland, which broke away to achieve independence from the United Kingdom in 1922. And the 6 northern counties of Northern Ireland remain part of the UK, and therefore they were involved in the Brexit debate last year, the infamous Brexit referendum.
Right, because in part, my understanding is that their objection was that if the UK separated from the European Union, that they would arguably have to reinstall the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, because now Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, but Ireland is an independent nation and is still part of the EU.
So that issue of the border is a huge one for everybody in Ireland, because we don't want the reimposition of a hard border across our island. It's kind of disappeared with the peace process since the late 1990s, and life has got a lot better. So we don't really want this to happen. However, the DUP did want it to happen, right? So the DUP is a...
Oh, I have it backwards.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the DUP was in favor of Brexit. And it is historically a party which comes out of an evangelical church called the Free Presbyterian Church, which was headed by a sort of infamous hot-blooded preacher called Ian Paisley. It was his party. And it was a very hardline Protestant anti-Catholic party. It's since kind of moderated its position. It's gone into sharing power with Sinn Féin, which is the main Catholic nationalist party in Northern Ireland, but it retains a very strong sense of itself as wanting to be seen as being kind of ultra-British. Right. And also it retains very strong positions on social issues, so it's against abortion, it's against same-sex marriage, it wants creationism taught in schools, it denies climate change. So it has a whole suite of those kinds of policies.
Bizarre.
What happened then?
Go ahead.
Last year, it was this very kind of strange moment when 2 days before the Brexit vote, almost a year ago, people in the mainland Britain were going to work. There's a kind of free sheet newspaper that's very widely distributed in most of the major cities, particularly in London. And they got their newspaper as they were getting on the train or whatever with a wraparound supplement, a very kind of glossy wraparound supplement, which was telling them to vote for Brexit, so to leave the European Union. And the branding on this showed that it was paid for by the DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party.
So this obscure political party
doesn't operate in Britain. It only operates in Northern Ireland.
Right. So this obscure political party in Northern Ireland is paying hundreds of thousands of euros or pounds for an advertisement in a newspaper in Great Britain itself, or in England, rather.
Exactly. And this, we now know, it cost about $300,000 or a little bit more. So it was a pretty big one-off expense.
So where'd they get the money?
For a small Irish political party, Northern Irish political party, right? There's not that kind of money in Northern Irish politics, right? So we kind of started asking questions about where did you get this money from? And eventually they first said they didn't know, and then they said, well, it was nothing to do with us. And then the story gets kind of murkier and murkier. It begins to read like a kind of John le Carré novel, because what they eventually say is, well, we got the money from, and it wasn't just this money, we got more money. We got in total about $600,000, right? So he said, we got this from the Constitutional Research Council. Now, none of us had ever heard of the Constitutional Research Council. What is this body? And it's a body, if you Google it, you won't find it. It's not, you might Google some articles about it now, but you won't find a website, you won't find any description of it as a legal entity, you won't find a list of directors, you won't find anything really about it. And it just turns out, as far as we know, it's one guy in Scotland, a guy in Glasgow in Scotland called Richard Cook. And so some people have been trying to find out, well, what the hell, who is this guy? He doesn't look like he's got this kind of money to throw around. He's not a multi-billionaire. And Cook won't say where the money came from. The DUP says, well, we don't know where the ultimate source of it is. However, this is a very strange connection because this guy, Cook, who's a very minor sort of businessman, turns out if you do a search of company records in Scotland, to have had a company. He was a co-director of a company with a major Saudi prince, a major prince from Saudi Arabia, who had been at various points, the chief spokesman for the Saudi government. He'd been Saudi Minister for Finance, and intriguingly, had been head of Saudi intelligence.
So why would Saudi intelligence or a Saudi billionaire want Brexit? This
is a question we really don't know the answer to. One of the oddities here is that the son of this Saudi prince is the Saudi ambassador to the United Kingdom and Ireland, right? So obviously the family has very, very strong direct connections in London, in England. There's some speculation that the Saudis would be probably quite happy with Brexit because they want to have a very close relationship with the UK. And a lot of that relationship is military. The UK sells them a lot of arms. The EU tends to be, it's by no means purer than pure on these issues, but it tends to be a little bit more cautious about selling arms to repressive regimes. And the Saudis, of course, are an extremely oppressive tyranny. Also involved, of course, in the Yemen, in very, very significant human rights abuses and killing civilians. So the European Union tends to be a bit more skeptical of this, and the UK tends to be a bit less so. And this is speculation.
Right.
That might be one of the reasons why the Saudis would like Brexit. Because
is this? We're talking with Fintan O'Toole, an op-ed columnist with the Irish Times. IrishTimes.com is the website, from Ireland. And Fintan, is this widely known? I mean, I have no idea, sitting here in Washington, D.C., whether the article of yours that I read was just, an obscure article that, I don't mean obscure in a negative way, but I mean, relatively speaking, that only appeared in the Irish Times, or is this story getting legs in the United Kingdom? Is it going viral? Is it, are people saying, hey, wait a minute, Theresa May, why are you hooking up with this party that is tied into this Scottish prince and et cetera?
Yeah.
Excuse me, this Saudi prince.
It's obviously kind of been around since last year. It was kind of obvious that these people were publishing this propaganda stuff pro-Brexit. It was marked all over the DUP, and people were kind of saying, what the hell is that?
Right.
But then, of course, Brexit itself was such a huge sensational story that it happened. It sort of blew it away. So people had been asking questions, then it was gone 2 days later. And there's a few of us have been kind of asking questions about it. There's a very, very good website called Open Democracy, which works on transparency issues, financial issues, and they've been digging away at it. But nobody has really been able to get a proper answer as to what really is the source of this money and why was it given. So it sort of has been bubbling away under the surface, and then a strange thing happened over the weekend. So suddenly on Saturday morning, you had the results of the UK elections. Theresa May didn't get her majority. And people in Britain are suddenly realizing, oh, my God, our government is now really dependent on this very small, pretty extreme Democratic Unionist Party. Who are they? And one of the things you could kind of see the effects of is people sort of Googling, saying, who are the DUP? And I suppose one of the things that started coming up online was the piece that I had written, which became the most read thing on the Irish Times website over the weekend. Now, if you think there were lots of other very immediate stories, this was a piece that I'd written, I think, 6 weeks ago. And all over Saturday, all over Sunday, and into Monday, it was the most read thing on our newspaper website.
Right.
And you can see what's happening there, which is people in Britain who don't know anything about the Democratic Unionist Party suddenly realizing what, who are these people, what's going on, and really kind of sharing it. And it's a kind of classic social media viral story, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So we have about a minute and a half, Fintan. Where does this go?
Well, so at the moment, it sort of lies with what's called the Electoral Commission, which is the independent body in the UK that's supposed to run elections. It's also responsible for the referendum. And there's an interesting anomaly, right? So the Electoral Commission says, look, Northern Ireland is exempted from having to, the parties don't have to say the source of their funding, which is disgraceful in itself, but they're supposed to know the source of their funding, right? So they're supposed to know, for example, that a foreign government isn't putting money into their election campaigns, right? So they can't accept anonymous donations. The Electoral Commission says they have to know this. The Democratic Unionist Party is saying, well, we don't know, and it doesn't really matter. So it sort of lies there at the moment.
It sounds like the Scottish businessman was basically acting like a money launderer.
Well, I wouldn't like to make any allegations against the person. I think what we'd like to know is what's he doing? You know, what is the real source of this money? So I don't think anybody believes that this person in himself put his hand in his own pocket and gave this money. I think this is part of a larger phenomenon that's now happening, which is that you've got a very, very unstable British government as a result of the elections last week. And you have a lot of people in Britain, a lot of British media kind of waking up to the fact that they're suddenly dependent on this very small party that they don't know a lot about. And this small party, the DUP, in turn, is suddenly, there's a spotlight on it, right, over a lot of different things. Right. And a lot of people are very uncomfortable with what they're seeing. They don't like its kind of, very extreme conservative policies. And they're alarmed at the fact that it may have such an outsized influence on British politics, on the way Brexit is conducted, and indeed on British history. I mean, this is a very historic moment for Britain. So I think it's going to be interesting over the next few weeks as maybe a wider British media starts to focus on who this party are and what their funding might be.
We live in interesting times. Fintan O'Toole, op-ed columnist with the Irish Times. You can read his article, What Connects Brexit, the DUP, Dark Money, and a Saudi Prince over at irishtimes.com. Fintan, thank you so much.
Pleasure, Tom.
And people can tweet you at FOtoole.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
That's at FOTOOLE or at Irish Times. We'll be back.